Okay. That works. All right, thank you for joining us tonight. This is our Activist Hour presentation for 92 County Strategy, Indiana's road to trying to bring everything back to the people and teach the people how to participate in government. So for those of you that are new to this organization, we present twice a month, and our goal is to give people information for free that will arm them and prepare them to run for office or assist someone in running for office. We are a political action committee, but we're made up of volunteers from across the state, and we do this on our own time as volunteers to try and just share the knowledge that we have learned in our efforts to try and get involved in our local city, state, and federal government. So tonight, I am very honored to have with us Gina Robinson Ungar. I have been friends with Gina for a little while now, and she is a powerhouse. And we are just so lucky to have you here tonight, Gina. I greatly appreciate you taking this time with us. So if you could just give us a little bit of background on you, introduce yourself, and then we'll get right into the meat of it and go over the People Summit.
Okay. Well, and I think I'm pretty unexperienced at scrolling through these screens, so you'll have to bear with me in my, there they are, okay, so I go forward and backward, right? So I will share that, yes, I live in Evansville, and I've been a farmer until pretty recently. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I guess I'll start with coming to Indiana from Massachusetts and Oberlin College, you know, fairly liberal places.
Right.
I was not quite prepared for what Southern Indiana would be like culturally, and it was such a mixture because I was struck kind of immediately with two things about our, you know, really dominant white Christian culture around here. And one was that everywhere I looked, there were signs, written signs, mostly, you know, telling me that I wasn't really I wasn't right if I wasn't Christian, if I wasn't a certain kind of Christian, if I didn't believe a certain set of realities that they did. And that somehow that was, there wasn't room, you know, as far as literal Bible belief. And that juxtaposed with absolute generosity and absolute willingness to jump in and help, and you know, we had an ice storm after which we had to bring our cows into the basement because there was no shelter yet built, and this neighbor just said, hey, look, I've got some fence posts, or, you know, it's not some fence posts, telephone poles, and I'll just put them in the ground and you know, help you auger them into the ground and get your shelter up so your cows will be protected. And I kept seeing that over and over again, this real generosity, real kindness, whereas, you know, in the political sphere, we run up against, quote, these people and think of them as wrong or messed up or having ideas that aren't congruent with our own. So I feel like that division and the sort of dedication and righteous anger that people on both sides bring to it, you know, calling it the culture wars, it's really been interesting to me as someone who didn't come from here, and that it's a distraction. You know, it's really the real battle, if we want to call it the real battle, is it's really the 99% versus the 1%. It's the haves versus the have-nots, and anything else is just weakening us in the face of, you know, a planet in crisis and real cataclysmic problems that need our full attention and energy. So I've kind of come at this whole political process, you know, in a bit of a spiritual way, trying to solve that puzzle, you know, because it's a real puzzle to me. I have these slides to get through if I learn how to properly operate them. Now, where do I click?
Well, I'll be clicking through them. I'll be clicking through them on our web.
You're going to go pretty fast here, so go ahead.
All right. Okay, so the first thing Gina's going to talk about is her experience at the...
Dude, you need to go through the slides fast. You haven't seen them yet. So. All right, this is really very background.
Oh, the cows!
Okay. This is me trying to make things right. Before and after, Gina having a milk business, trying to solve it by running a farm. There's my first glance at Indiana. That's our hillside. Before we built stuff on it, and the cows and the barn my husband built for me. See how we have to go fast because it's irrelevant.
But this is great because, you know,
tank. This is where I come from, though. It's my roots.
This is beautiful because one of the things that we at 92 County Strategy, one of our goals is to help people realize that the people that are out there that are doing this, that are running for office, that are making a difference, are normal people. They're just everybody you would meet on the street, and the only difference is they feel that call in their gut that they have to help make this right. And these pictures could not be more perfect. Oh, look at that. Now, who are these little boys?
Oh, you're still going, and I'm not somehow. I hope I didn't lose my internet. Those are my sons, Sam and Peter. A long time ago, he's about 3 and 1, and Peter's 1. So, you know, this is the zoo I lived in, and Bernie kind of saved me from that. You know, in the process of, you know, we had a good talk with Christina Hill last week about how it is to be a woman and a mom and trying to balance your whole life, and in a way that men don't experience quite the same way. But in my case, I was trying to raise these 2 little boys, you know, and handle the household and be a good wife and hold it all together. And Bernie saved me from all that. In a way, he kind of helped me disengage from what, you know, being a farmer, you're a very stubborn person who clings to the effort like crazy, because otherwise you would give up, you know. So Bernie was kind of a way to have a different identity that with people that helped me feel like I mattered and like I had something to share that was important. Now here, slow down a little more. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of what, you know, kind of what keeps me going. I also felt as though, you know, being in the Bernie campaign was a chance, like I didn't expect him to come along. I didn't expect him to offer what he did to us, this like serious hope, this kind of hope that could we actually have a president that understands climate change so deeply? Could we actually have a president who understands that poverty and war and the environment are the things worth focusing on, not, you know, taxes or, you know, the latest scandal or all the garbage that we hear all the time.
Not just understands them, but is willing to give voice to them. And scream at the rafters and say, you know, this is what people care about. This is what we should all be caring about. And that was just so refreshing to know. You know, I often say that the greatest thing that Bernie ever gave any of us was finding each other. Because I can't tell you how many nights I sat there and thought I was just alone.
Right. And so many people do still feel alone, and so many people don't dare hope and still are so marginalized. And, you know, I was talking with a coworker of mine today, a really, really neat woman she's African American. You know, she grew up in the city that treated her badly and you know, didn't show her that she was beautiful. But she's a powerful woman. She's strong, but she is so cynical that I don't know if it's fair to make her hope, never mind people that are barely able to, you know, stay homeless or are struggling with any number of other challenges. Why should someone hope? And that's what we're up against with recruiting new voters and really trying to build a movement that's not just white, liberal, educated folks. Like, how do you reach someone who, she's woke, this woman knows her history, she's absolutely, you know, but is she going to go for this, the pain of having hope crushed, you know? And I haven't got her yet, but we'll keep talking, right?
Right.
So,
so we're on the slide right now. It says knowing history matters, and you said
yeah,
that she's woke and she knows her history, and so I try to tell people so often will come and they'll say things and it's out of context or it's incorrect. Did you notice the other day where NPR tweeted out the Declaration of Independence and people lost it? They thought they were trying to incite violence and it, you know, it's scary to think how far we've come from this core knowledge that we as a society should never lose.
Right, right.
It's
and it's a shame, yeah. But, you know, what I'm up against and what kept me strong in the Bernie campaign, I think, was that I had been through this rodeo slightly. Don't go that fast, okay?
Okay.
But I had been through this rodeo before, and I only slightly. I'd seen it before in the Bush versus Gore election. That happened when I was 22 and out of college, working for my dad, living on the farm in his apartment. You know, like, if there was anybody whose life wouldn't fall apart if I became a screaming activist for a month over what was going on in Florida over those hanging chads and Supreme Court decisions and things that led to George W. Bush, I think I regret, I will say I regret that I didn't do more. I regret that I didn't put everything I could into that. And with regard to the Bernie campaign and taking it all the way to the national convention, as I did as a delegate, I was not willing to live with the regrets. I knew that the chances of us pulling off some miracle by which Bernie would become president wasn't very likely at all. And there were people who, you know, I had activists in my circle who were like literally trying to storm the gates of the convention and do a citizen's arrest on Hillary Clinton. I mean, it was like, they knew they wouldn't get there, you know, but it was like that kind of just wanting to try everything we could try, you know, while keeping our morality intact. That's and I felt absolutely privileged. You know, I'm this white woman. I'm the least likely person to get physically assaulted in that way, not, you know, I've been safe. You know, I can protest, I can smuggle banners, I can scream at my elected officials, and nobody murders me or my family, you know, and I felt a real privilege. I was needed to speak because other people can't, you know, and that's what I'm getting at, is that it was something. I know that I looked disobedient and disrespectful, and that was not my intention at all. And I do have a lot of respect and honor for those Democrats, even the ones that I disagree with sometimes in the party. But it had to be said, you know, we had to try and we had to say our piece about how the election went. So, and I also, this is all about hope. It ties together with the People's Summit. About knowing history and about what we're imagining, you know, that kind of, I was thinking about being a time traveler. Like, imagine if you could go back, and maybe now we want to go ahead a little bit to, if we had, you know, if I had been out in the streets and my little butterfly effect had mattered enough to prevent George W. Bush from being president for those years. You know, we had that budget surplus. We were rolling around in money that we didn't know what to do with. All of these millions of people were safe and living in their beautiful cities. You can probably go forward a few slides now. But here's some history. These are like the classic playbook, you know.
Yeah, this is, this.
Right.
Yeah, and this is something that, you know, the rise of social media has kind of been crazy and contributing to kind of the waking up of the masses, because people that normally wouldn't get a chance to interact or converse are now, you know, just a finger stroke away, and it is massive how fast this is happening. Yeah.
So, okay, let's stop on Yoda for a minute. So, like, that kind of response, you know, of attacks like that I believe Al Gore would have prevented. You can argue with me if you want, but that it's the response when, you know, when the rabbit bites the tiger's tail, it's not because he wants to hurt the tiger tail. It's because he hopes the tiger will fall off a cliff in the jumping, you know.
Right.
And so that kind of, you know, what if we could stop the rabbit, you know? What if we could go back to before this war on terror, you know, never mind the war on drugs and, you know, a million other ill-fated government disasters.
Right.
You know, Henry Wallace, look him up, right? But if you stop and step back for a moment and think about, okay, well, you know, we've lost that one. We've lost the Bernie campaign. Okay, but what treasures remain, you know? Like the day that Bernie conceded the nomination to Hillary a few weeks before the convention, I drove to New Hampshire. I was already at my family's house in Massachusetts. I just had to be there and see it in person, you know?
Right.
But now, but I had to go to a lake and just watch my kids play in this beautiful lake and say, well, like, we lost this shining chance at a president that really, really gets it, you know.
Right.
I need to be at the lake and love the lake, even if I'm feeling the lowest of all doom about this happening. I need to be present with the lake right now and treasure it right now, even if the lake is going to be destroyed by whatever disaster this all leads to. You know, this is the only planet and the only world I can live in. So all of this, you know, it's this kind of contention between going to a place like the People's Summit and being exposed to so many good ideas and hopeful people who are working within the system, outside the system, you know, in academia, with unions, with oppressed people, in so many different ways, you know. And for any of us, there was an important part of that, which was that there was some controversy over, you know, why is this such an opulent experience? Like, why are we being fed so well? Why are the banners looking good and not like the chewed up poster that was behind Bernie when he announced his candidacy, or, you know, the that July 29th event 2 years ago now. The People's Convention, it was like a reunion in a beautiful way of friends from the convention, friends from the campaign, you know, all the Bernie buddies that we love, you know, but it was also a chance to learn. And not surprisingly, people had a lot of criticism about that, and feelings about, you know, just wondering kind of why was Bernie wrong? You know, this draft Bernie movement is a big thing, and those who are still feeling utterly furious with the Democratic Party and hopeless about ever changing it. And you and I can relate to a little taste of that, I'm sure. But that they were just, you know, putting all these banners, you know, and signs and trying to recruit everyone to draft Bernie for a People's Party. And, you know, even Roseanne DeMoro from the nurses union says, well, you know, I sure wish he would, you know, just kind of pick up and go. And I have mixed feelings about that, you know, like, as someone who loves and trusts him, you know, I'd sure be tempted to go with him. I think he would have the best of the best in many ways. But what he says, and also what his son Levi Sanders said in a smaller group, is that what about all the infrastructure? What about all of the daily maintenance, the having a machine to do the work, you know, having experience, frankly, experience, and knowledge to share, you know, and in that sense, I think he's right that it would be a terrible mistake, and that it would be incredibly hard to make that work well enough to make, you know, to succeed. I do think that that was kind of just a tricky thing to navigate. And what I realized today as I was trying to put it all together was that it's this sense of orthodoxy, you know, that like you're only a good enough socialist if you reject the whole Democratic Party, or you're only a good enough anything if you are only my kind and don't listen to anybody else or work with anybody else. Because
it's just the new poor, rich, black, white, young, old. It's just the new way for them to put us against each other. It's all it is.
Right. Right. And it's not even that, but it's like human nature to do it to ourselves. It's the kind of people we are. You know, they say the whole saying is that Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line. And it's the personality types that are attracted to these types of politics. You know, and that's been studied with psychology, that you know, the personality types are more authoritarian, who enjoy Republican type candidates, and they're more you know, independent and free-spirited and kind of light and creative and all that fun stuff on our side. But the thing is that we overdo it, and it's not that we can't be more socialist or more woke or more anything. It's that politics takes compromise and forgiveness and tolerance and a lot of working with people that you disagree with and not changing their minds. You still have to work with them even when you fail to change their minds. Yeah. Right? So
absolutely.
That's the trick of it, is that I think it's like a maturing process to develop the ability to work with people that don't agree with you, and to really understand that it doesn't matter whether you change their mind; they still deserve to have their own mind, you know. And I certainly have been in that room a few times now where I blurt out everything that I'm thinking, and then suddenly realize that everybody
I love you for
I'm horrible,
though.
you know.
I love you for it.
I keep on doing it, don't I? But you know, I have to know inside that I'm not horrible, first of all, that garbage. But I also know that I have to respect their right to disagree with me, and that they've had a totally different experience. You know, if I were a woman of a certain age, I would have been so excited to see Hillary Clinton running for president. You know what I mean? Because of just the demographics of that, and to know that that women do get treated that way.
That's a big deal. I mean, hey, it's a big deal. You know, I personally, I voted for Jill Stein, and I got very excited when I voted for Jill Stein because I did cast my vote for a female. It wasn't why I cast my vote for her, but I was very excited to do it. You know, that was like a little bonus, kind of. You know, it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, you know, it shouldn't be why you do something, but if you can take pleasure in it, why not?
Sure, why not? Right. I just I really want to just vote for the best candidate, and I have the privilege, once again, tons of luck and privilege in my life of having been raised really virtually free of self-hate garbage and self-doubt garbage that so many women have been and are raised with. And it's just I don't think I'm the broken one. Like that, I didn't feel like I needed to. That's not a nice way to say it. I don't need to elect a woman to feel like a woman can be president. Like, I don't. I already know it, and I don't doubt it, and I know it's coming, and I probably have a long life to live, and so maybe that's what it is. But it's totally a position of privilege and luck, and I'm grateful for it. But it doesn't mean I'm less angry about what happened to so many women and the slights that they suffered in their careers and in their, you know, upbringing. So should we get back to the People Summit? I do want to say
Sure. Should I go
I
forward?
probably need to skip through some slides. Yeah, I probably skip some slides. Okay. Oh, there we go. Skip my quote. Hold on a sec. Well, there was my quote too back there.
Oh, was it? I missed it. I'm
sorry. Oh, there we go. There, just that.
Oh, I like
right.
that.
So follow
Breathe
money.
is what lights the path to the dark side.
Yay, right.
That is
trying
beautiful.
That one. See if it fits.
Yeah. I like
but
that.
It is true that one does not simply unfeel the burn. So we got active at our Revolution Evansville. We changed our name to that after being Southwestern Indiana for Bernie Sanders. And
right.
That's been a real kind of, again, that up and down, back and forth, life taking over. You need to step back for a while. Then we just had a meeting last night of our leadership, and we're going to take on the Medicare for All, the march, and some lead-up events to just really give people a vision of what could be or should be possible.
Right.
And we've done some canvassing with Indivisible around here, and we're just trying to really have a bottom-up, people-focused. As a business person with my farm, I had to know what the customers wanted. I didn't run around saying, I'm so good, you should buy my stuff. It was like, what do you want? What are you concerned about? And I certainly had turned away some people that, seemed like they shouldn't be drinking cow milk,
right.
or shouldn't be drinking raw milk or whatever. It's like, I don't want to sell it for the sake of selling it. I want to sell it because it's what's needed and what people want. And what people want is healthcare that works. And they want to be, they want to have their drug addiction and mental health problems treated seriously and not break them financially in the process, too. So
absolutely.
That's what I hear when I go door to door. And, anyway. So
now, for those of us that are looking at
go
the
ahead.
online, for those of us that are looking online at the presentation, Gina has put together some slides for you tonight. And right now we are on one that actually has the website for the People Summit. It's thepeoplesummit.org, and you can go on there and watch videos from the People Summit. It's pretty great.
Yeah, they're really good. I mean, these were such amazing people, and it was such a delight to be in the room with them and, really hear what they had to say. One thing about it was, too, just like we do on 92 County Strategy, the people who spoke, no matter how famous they were and how astounding they were, they talked about their own experience as people who struggled and suffered and doubt themselves and feel, confused. And it was so beautiful of them to offer that vision, that view of themselves to us. It was so humanizing, and it really felt like an honor to be let into that part of them, that they would tell those stories of difficulty. So some of those are on the videos, and and another thing that I want to mention too, that these are videos that are not necessarily shown on the People Summit site, but there were two in particular that I'm thinking of. That one was called, and I didn't link to these on my slides, but one is called "Waking the Sleeping Giant," which is a film about the course of the Bernie campaign through the eyes of several struggling volunteers of different backgrounds. So I think they have a woman from southern West Virginia, the poor isolated white coal towns, and she's amazing, Sabrina Schrader. And to see her town and what she goes through and the struggle of running her own campaign. So it kind of follows her for several months. And then I think they had some undocumented immigrants and a woman who lost someone in a police shooting of a black man who's her relative. And also a lot of imagery from the Standing Rock protest. So what it does is it's the cure for the divide and conquer. This whole showing people that your struggle is your struggle and it's real, but other people have a struggle too, and the fact that you recognize their struggle does not make your struggle any less, you know, and
Right.
that's the message that was totally missing enough anyway, in the Hillary campaign and the Democratic message. Like, you can't just hand people glossy flyers that say nothing of substance and get them excited to vote for you. You have to speak to their pain and their experience, and get them to hope you're going to do anything, and then do it, you know. So
Absolutely.
you know, that's what is so good in films. You know, I've had this challenge wondering, like, you know, I'm working now in the housing authority office with people that struggle, you know, with lots of reality, and just trying to imagine. And of course, I keep my activism pretty darn separate from what they do,
Right.
or, you know, professional life. But how can I ask someone who's already struggling to put themselves out there and get political and hope, right? Like,
right.
what can I even offer that is going to be helpful or appreciated, or not just one more heavy thing on someone who's already burdened with struggles?
That's
right?
one of the reasons that I got involved, is that I have some very close friends, like very, very dear to me, that are some of the hardest workers I know, and they continue to struggle every day. And, you know, I'm not a wealthy person. I don't have the money to just, you know, throw at problems to fix them. I don't know how to do that. I was never raised that way. So, you know, you get your elbows in, you figure out what to do. So when all of this started, I was like, this is what I can do. Like, this is how I can help people. This is how I can help the most people at one time, and try and just put a little bit of good karma out there. And it just snowballed. And once that lights inside of you, it just never goes away.
Yeah, it's sort of addictive, isn't it? Right?
It is.
It's like we were looking for our next fix, so we had to start our Revolution Evansville and keep on trying. But yeah, you know, it does. It's hard, though. It's hard to see so much pain and to not kind of get callous about it, or to not just imagine that it's hopeless and you can't do anything or shouldn't try.
Right.
You gotta, like, and people, all the activists I know who've been in this stuff for decades, you know, they say you got to take care of yourself too. You know, you got to step back and tune out if it's what you need to do, or just find that place and that way to heal up and rest up. So,
oh, definitely. I mean, that's something that, you know, I tell people all the time. You can be as involved in politics and political activism as much as you want, but you should have something outside of that. You should have two things. And any one person that does the kind of organizing that you do, or I do, or any of the many other people that we've worked with along the way do, should always have two things. Something to charge you that can help you feel better, you know, because this, like you said, you get beat down. It is difficult not to become callous. So, you know, it's always good to get involved with something that isn't, your path won't necessarily be blocked. You know, local nonprofit organizations, shelters, soup kitchens, clearinghouses, pantries, you know, things like that. Things that you get basically an amount of gratification from, you know, you feel good helping people in these ways, and they're not something that are generally blocked, you know, the way you can get blocked in politics. You know, you can build up this huge plan and make this great big move and think everything's right, and then you're just shut down. Whereas, you know, making sure that you volunteer at the soup kitchen a couple of times a month, it can give you that something to look forward to make you feel like you're still doing something good.
Right. I mean, well, and that's like, I'm glad for the simplicity of my job right now. Like, I don't take it home with me really when I go home, but I do, you know, literally my job is to greet people, answer phones, and staple papers. What it actually turns into is me hearing all these stories, you know, story after story after story, and, you know, where people just, they try to, sometimes it's like they're trying to start out with, I have the hardest life, you know, like they're winning the hard life contest, right? And to keep on respecting that and to keep on offering, you know, the right professionalism and compassion combined, right?
Right.
And help. But since we have so few tools in our kit there, you know, Section 8 is closed until further notice. We're someday we'll open it up and get 1,000 people lined up around the block, right? That's how that program works, because it doesn't have the funding because of Congress, you know. And so I think being able to feel the satisfaction, and, you know, I smiled at this person and I stapled her papers really well, and I, you know, did direct someone to some good help. And basically this program, it does make a huge difference. Like, it's giving hundreds of dollars to people who wouldn't otherwise have it to pay their rent. You know, it's keeping them from homelessness, and it's letting them, you know, buy food and little else, honestly, right, for their families. But, you know, I am glad that it's a helping job. You know, I didn't want to work, you know,
absolutely,
selling cigarettes or something. I don't know, which probably helps on some levels anyway, but you know what I mean.
Right. Oh no, I understand. It's always nice to have something you feel like when you leave, your job is done for the day. So I understand that.
Which is not true of farming ever.
Now, right.
Or
so
mothering.
Before we get on into the slides, because we do.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there
do have like
that
a limited
much more
time. So
slide-wise. Okay. So let me.
Well,
get
but there's
to the
one.
People's Summit, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go over this slide we have up right here, because
yes.
I didn't realize it was over 4,000 people. I thought it was half that.
Right.
And then 54% were actually people of color, which is incredible. That is just wonderful, just to see inclusion like that. You know, it's coming from rural Indiana, and you living out here now. I mean, you know what that's like. So so to get a 54%, to get a majority of people of color is so amazing, because that is a voice that needs elevated so much.
Yes.
So that's really fantastic.
On the stage and off, man, it was like, I felt, you know, you're never out of white supremacist world. Like, it's not gone.
Oh God,
from
no,
existence,
obviously.
of course, you know, but every stage there were just a sprinkling of white men among many other people who were not white men. And there were probably more women than men, I think. And there were, you know, more people of color than white folks on stage too. And it was just like, what a relief. And God, it would be 10 times the relief if I were a person of color. I think, you know, having been starved for just the faces that look like mine in amazing leadership roles all the time, you know. Not that there's
you need role models,
but to put them on stage.
You need,
you know,
role models.
Right.
You know, you need people to look up to. You need, you know, years ago they would talk about, you know, everybody needs a role model. Every little kid needs to be able to look up and see someone that they can imagine themselves becoming, and becoming this great person. And that is something I'm so excited to see happening, because we know through the Sanders campaign there was a lot of valid criticism about the one-sided nature of his administration, and I'm so glad that information really sank in and came through, and that is changing, and it's been recognized, and they're making efforts to correct it, because that's the big thing. That's why we believed in him so much. We believed that if he heard our problems, no matter what they were, that he would attempt to address them. It may not make it all better, but he would make an attempt, which is a lot more than what we've expected from our elected officials thus far in many instances. So.
And Nina Turner is now the president of Our Revolution, the national
I was so
group.
excited about that. And she has the Nina Turner show on the Real News Network now.
Yeah,
and I love it.
I know. So she's dazzling. And I ended with a quote from her, so that's going to be the last one when you get to it. But the launching of the Sanders Institute was a thing. I'll get to that in a minute. But the Sanders Institute, I'm going to just scroll over here to my, okay. So Jane Sanders is the force behind the Sanders Institute. But we have Cornel West, Tulsi Gabbard, Jeffrey Sachs, Nina Turner, Danny Glover, Stephanie Kelton, I don't know who she is yet, Harry Belafonte, Bill McKibben of 350.org, Vangelis, and Robert Reich, who's a friend of my mom's from way back, but also like the cool guru of explaining anything economic in terms you can understand with cartoons. So if you have never seen a Robert Reich video, R-E-I-C-H, watch it all the time, right? You sure? I'm sure. But
absolutely.
So like I just, that kind of leadership, they can't do anything but be really cool. Now I have just a few slides of very basic stuff, but basically the Slanders Institute itself had these 4 rotating workshops that repeated throughout the breakout session periods. And those ones are not online, and I don't know when and if they're going to be posted on the Sanders Institute. Maybe they will. And so I went to some of them. One was called Fighting for a People's Agenda, and that was very interesting. Basically, I'm going to try to summarize it quickly, which is that the concept is that, yes, we are kind of, not kind of, literally on a tipping point with our planet, on the brink of environmental collapse, and our economy, really, the rich are so rich that they are breaking civilization. I can't even say it better than that. And I don't want to say whoever the normal people are on this call, quote normal, they're shocked by my statement here. But what I mean is that this inequality is always a sign of a civilization about to collapse. And we have got to pull back from the brink. We really, really do. It's the responsible thing to do. Believe me, you don't want to see what happens when the civilization falls apart with the kind of power of destruction that we have between our wars and our greed.
Absolutely.
Really terrifying. But they didn't just say the world is sky's falling, which is a refreshing change from what I've been raised on sometimes. They said that there are these 3 rounds of class struggle, right? And they said it much more beautifully and with slides than I will. But basically, go ahead to one of them. So corporate control. Corporate control is a force to be reckoned with. That's and healthcare seems to be the battlegrounds where that is being fought. The idea that profitability and kind of marketability and the ability to make a profit. Yeah. Sorry. Are you there?
Absolutely.
Okay, kind of a funny sound. That those things are going to save us every time. These people that believe in like Keynesian economics, that you can just let the market take care of everything and it's magic. Well, no, the market does some things really well, but it doesn't account for everything. And anybody who tries to convince you that free market capitalism is just, brilliantly self-perfected is not poor. And they are not living with what we call healthcare in this country.
Absolutely.
Basically that, that's what we see is that Medicare for All, it's taking the profit motive out of medicine. And yes, countries do it, and yes, they have better health care, and yes, they do it for cheaper. So why on earth are we not doing it? It's all about the people needing to give voice to their rage and, seize power. And I don't mean with pitchforks and torches. I don't, we can do this by voting and marching. I don't think we have to kill anybody. I think it's like,
absolutely.
I want the peaceful revolution. What's that?
Yeah. Today was the big sit-in day. I was watching a live stream of some other activists I've worked with a little bit, and they were at Portman's office in Cincinnati, and you have a young woman there in her wheelchair just pouring her heart out, and she's like, look, and she even told the gentleman that was there, I know this isn't necessarily your job description, but I'm here, I'm waiting. It's time for our voices to be heard. And, you until everybody gets like that, that's what we have to do. when the ADA, when the Americans with Disabilities Act passed, it took people with disabilities on the steps of the Capitol, you know, to get that done. And that is, to me, abhorrent as a society that it got to that point before we made sure we were taking care of people that needed taken care of. And we're back to that again as a society because health problems have become so rampant, which you are the food queen over here, so you know all the stuff that's in the food that's causing all of this. That's a whole nother discussion.
That's another discussion.
But the corporate, like you have here, the corporate control over healthcare has definitely destroyed the practice of medicine in almost every way. I would argue, you know, it's. I think Chris Hedges made the comment, you know, you can't put a price on being sick. You can go out and you can buy a used car if you don't have the money to get a brand new car. You can't go out and get cheaper cancer.
Right.
You know, you can't go out and get a cheaper diabetes. You can't go out and get cheaper cystic fibrosis or cerebral palsy.
And
there's no getting
the healthcare nerd
disease.
in me would maybe try to disagree with that on some fronts, but mostly not. You know, that's a whole other discussion. The how of medical care is. I see medical care myself as three parts. There's this part, which we talk about a lot these days. How do you pay for it? And is it fair to just tax people and pay for it, period, and cut the profit out of it and just make it something that we do because we are people who care about people. I want to live in that world. I think you do, and like probably most people do. I think it's been studied.
Absolutely.
So that's part one of Medicare, and then part 2 and 3 are the other two elephants in the room. There's the question of, we touched on this, like the actual quality of, or what you're doing with healthcare, you know, the whole gut microbiome and what you're eating, you know, basically diet plus antibiotics plus living a modern lifestyle. We aren't getting into that at all. Don't get me started, right? But the other one that's more tricky is cutting out the waste, you know, and dealing because what people think is that, oh God, medical care is so expensive, we couldn't possibly pay for it with taxes. But if you take out the waste, you know, there are things you can do. You know, when my son had a febrile seizure, he didn't actually need an ambulance, and I wasn't even frightened for him. We had a medic who showed up within 5 minutes, way out in East Boonville. You know, medic was there. He said, cool him down. I hadn't given him any drugs yet, you know, and so it was like, okay, cooled him down, and he was better. I knew my child, and I wasn't frightened, you know, because I just let his fever run up to kill the germs. Now, did we need the ambulance for another $1,300? Did we need to wait 2 hours to park in the ambulance and sit around with a naked baby and wait to go to the hospital, and then go to the hospital and wait around and then see the doctor who then said, oh, give him ibuprofen? Probably not. You know, and that's the kind of thing that I want that rural hospital to stay open. I am so grateful that it's there with an emergency room 20 minutes from my old home. I don't want that to stop, you know, so there's a balancing point, you know, and we need to keep the, you know, the medics and the ambulances in practice and everything. But at some point, you don't need to, you know, rule out tuberculosis and you know, all these other bizarre things that aren't happening when you know they're not happening, you know, or you know what I mean? Wastefulness. That's what I'm saying. Wasteful spending. So Medicare, though, you know, it's a big thing, and yeah, it's where to fight that battle, says the Sanders Institute people. Then let's go to the next slide. Yep, financialization gets us hooked on debt. So that is the idea that we can continue to cannibalize our finances in the sense that I had these notes saying 1,318 corporations in the world control 80% of the world's wealth. 147 corporations control 40% of the world's wealth. And the top 50 of those are all financial institutions. So the top 50 corporations in the world are financial institutions. So they are literally borrowing money to profit from itself, and when I was in college, the big fight was over the Jubilee 2000 movement and the World Bank and IMF and World Trade Organization awareness, the battle in Seattle. I almost got on that plane to participate in that protest. But the World Bank, kind of started out with some good intentions, helped the world recover from World War II, but then they were like, oh, well, we better just keep going, and the IMF, let's just keep going, and we'll invest in these poor countries so we can make a profit, and they can never quite pay back their debt, but we'll just keep them going, like sharecroppers or payday lenders or something, and we'll just keep them broken and paying us, but always paying us. So,
right.
that, people who say, who just say no to austerity programs, which do not work, they're not wrong when they say, look, we are people, and it wasn't even our choice to get in this kind of debt. So why are you just continuing to suck the money out of a place that has already paid,
Right.
Obviously, another big topic that we can't get all the way there, but I was delighted to learn that the Robin Hood tax is not just a joke, it's a real group. So we got these free hats at the convention. I didn't know this. I thought it was just kind of like, oh, haha, that's adorable, thanks for the hat. But so it's robinhoodtax.org, and it's the group that Bernie was always talking about, that plan to tax Wall Street trades, which are too fast for their own good anyway, and the tiny bit of tax would slow them down that tiny bit, and everybody wins, really. It's funny that way in the financial world. So it says in 2010, 12 EU countries agreed to a Robin Hood tax. So yeah, that's really something.
Wow.
Then I guess we'll go to the next one. There we go, privatization, round 3. So in education, the corporate agenda has transferred via computerized testing and instruction and systems in such a way that, we have these ridiculous standardized tests with punishing results to the teachers, and basically the results are, it's the poverty, stupid. Why are we paying them to tell us that poverty is a problem? Why are we punishing teachers who are teaching when there's poverty? Why? And
not to mention the pressure it puts on the kids.
Yeah, not to mention that school is less fun and interesting. My son, I'm so proud. I wish I had an image of this thing, but one time he was had an assignment when he was in 1st or 2nd grade, and he wrote, it was basically he made a cute little collage that was a supporting idea in the center of a daisy-type flower, with all the petals being the central idea, with the supporting ideas around it. And he had an argument in favor of more recess and more playtime at school. And he was saying, he was talking about Finland. He was talking about, how they all have lots and lots of playtime every hour. And, the kids are the smartest kids in the world, and they play all the time. And, he just kind of went all the way around the flower with good arguments like that. And, it's
that's
true.
a testament to a good mother right there.
Oh, definitely. Oh, this kid, he swallows up that justice talk like crazy.
Yeah, my teenager does too.
But he's an older brother, so he's not very just, if you know what I mean. Don't tell him I said that. But
now I do want to make.
We're running out of time.
I do want to make. Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, but I do want to make one comment here. About how the privatization, so the Sanders Institute with the 3 steps, the first one is the way they've done healthcare, the privatization, corporate control of healthcare, and then you have the financialization, where the top 50 companies in the world are all financial institutions, and then the privatization, taking the public wealth and the private pockets and doing a lot of it through education. And, now for the people that are listening and watching this later on, if you don't know, you should know that student loan debt is bigger than the mortgage. You know, there are
Yeah.
more people with more amounts of student loan debt that there are mortgages, and that's a really big problem because when the housing bubble burst, we had all of, all of the catastrophe and the trickle down effect of that essentially. And
Right.
now, I'm really scared about the student loan debt bubble because nobody I know can afford to pay their student loans. So many of them are on
Right.
default and deferment, and
Right.
what's going to happen next, and when is that going to go
It's
down,
like a
and what's
new,
the president
it's
going to
the
do
new
about it?
sharecroppers, Yeah. And
Yeah.
my husband,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
in higher education. He teaches music students at a private college with not much endowment. So these are like literally,
Hmm.
they're going to an expensive school studying something that only rarely really pays well,
Right.
and he feels some conflict over it, that it's like, is he doing the right thing, teaching these students that
Right.
are going out into a job market that's not always kind, and some of them are taking outrageous loans that should not be
Yeah.
allowed. And
Yeah. They
again,
really
I
shouldn't.
run,
If you won't give an
yeah,
18-year-old a $30,000 loan for a brand new car, why would
right,
you loan them money for school?
that they can't even pay back. I mean, or that they can't have fees,
Yeah.
and yeah, that it's
Right.
absurd, and it shouldn't cost that much. But again, I'm telling you, this all
Oh,
rolls right back to
absolutely.
healthcare. It's all back to healthcare because
Right.
the cost of taking these students to to college, there's bureaucracy, and there are all these levels of administrators that didn't used to be there. That's another story.
Right.
But it's the healthcare that is killing us, literally and figuratively, because every professor who's got a family is paying $8,000 a year, of their salary, and then about the same amount in their out-of-pocket costs. I mean, and these are good jobs. This is a tenured job. That's why I'm so determined that this is the issue, because our healthcare is making us uncompetitive in every way. And it's not as simple as just paying for it with taxes. That's only part of it, and I acknowledge that absolutely. But that's, we cannot compete as a nation with the healthcare system we have. And
No,
it literally,
absolutely not.
it is a form of cannibalism. We're just destroying ourselves in order to enrich the rich, and it has to stop, And I'm not a crazy person. This is just logic. If you follow it through, you'll see.
Yeah.
So with all the love in my heart and all of the few rich people that I know and love, you know, I just think this has got to change.
Absolutely. Well, we are coming up on the end of our time slot, so the final quote on your presentation, I do want to ask you just a couple of quick questions here at the end, but the final
Yeah.
quote is, "This darkness we are experiencing is not a tomb, but a womb, and these pains we are feeling are the pains of a new beginning. So don't give in, just breathe, and you push." And
Yeah.
that's the Nina Turner quote that you finished, and Miss Nina Turner is probably one of my heroes. So that is, I love that you finished with that. So for
Yeah.
those people that have sat and have listened to us reminisce a little bit and talk about the different things you learned at the People's Summit and the Sanders Institute seminars, and you're the lead organizer for Our Revolution Evansville, and you're just such a driving push down in that district and trying to give a voice to all these people. If you could say, what is the thing, and just quickly, the thing that you enjoy the most about organizing, the thing that you enjoy the least, and one best practice, the most important piece of advice you could give to someone that's thinking about jumping in and trying to organize their city.
Okay. Best thing. Well, I think the best thing is when you make something happen that wouldn't have happened if you didn't do it. And I haven't done a whole lot yet. I ran a meeting that was pretty good that about 85 people showed up to, and
Nice.
it felt, this was in December though, during the post-Trump crisis time, and I felt like I was, and I was doing a lot of things right, but we just didn't, we made a few mistakes that were like communication mistakes and follow-through mistakes, and we were right before the holidays and all of that. And I learned from this Hoosier Action workshop. Hoosier Action, look them up, they're cool. New group in Bloomington of professional organizers.
I've heard good things about them.
I want to hire them to come train us in the ways of their force, you know, but I don't know if they're going to, we'll see, you know, but I went to their training, it was neat, and they said that, you know, you need to follow through and you need to kind of, it's just you have to use the accountability, you know, to make sure that people do what they say they're going to do, and we just had some bad luck with that, and so, you know, I forgive us, but so that's the thing, but I did feel proud that I was able to speak when other people were just like horrified and confused about what to do at all, you know, and I'd already been through that birth process at the convention. We'd already, you know, our phoenix had already burned up in the ashes, so we were already ready to rise when they were still in total grief and shock. So that was something at least that I could offer, you know, because I was not shell-shocked when Trump got elected. Like mistakes. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's still kind of being able to be on and again, navigate my health in ways that make my mind active and functional and smart enough to get things done. And that when I'm not as well, I don't get things done, and have a hard time knowing what to do and doing it. And so when I am feeling up to it, it's like I have to make up for all the lost time, you know. 20 years or more wading through mud, and you finally get your track shoes on, and you just can't shut up. You know, that's kind of how it is for me now that I'm kind of working that stuff out. So, what's something that you've run up against that you don't like? Something that people should maybe prepare themselves for if they decide to jump into this? Right. Well, you know, I mean, I could say the obvious, that there will be people who yell at you in public and you know, tell you you're wrong. So, you know, that it happens. It happens when you start to rock the boat. And it happens when you scare people. When people are scared, they lash out, and you got to be ready to defend yourself, but have compassion at the same time, and not do anything you'll regret. So be careful, be smart. But are we at the part where I say something that's good practice?
Yes, please. Listening. Yeah, let's finish with that. What's your Okay.
It's just to listen and tell the truth, and listen to what is true, and forgive what is harmful, and don't get sucked into keeping score. Just love, and try to be the light for everyone who needs some, and don't try to be the star of any show. Humble service is what everybody on that stage at the Steeple Summit was talking about. It is not about you. You just get up there and do what needs getting done to help people.
And that's very hard for a lot of people to adjust to. I will openly admit, I am a very type A personality. I had to learn how to come into a thing and be helpful but not overpowering. And when you're a type A personality, that is so hard to learn how to do and learn how to do effectively.
Right.
And so that is
I want to be
great advice.
Yes, I want to be Wonder Woman and Daenerys Targaryen, like all at once. And I can't, you know, like I do want to be those people. I like, oh, it's so much fun, right? But no, that's not the world we live in. You know, we need good listeners, and you know, we need courage, but we need to tone it down a little bit from that, you know. So, but it's an exciting journey, figuring out, you and I were like women who are kind of in this first generation of relatively unfettered by limits women.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say my mother, she was not without limits. She went right to secretarial school and, worked in Don Draper's office more or less. So we're that generation that really gets to be anything we make of ourselves. It's pretty exciting.
And if it wasn't for people like us pushing 20, 30 years ago for the changes that we got in our education and the changes that we got for our parents, we would never be what we are.
Thank you, my sisters in the struggle. Yes, yes. Exactly. I'm glad you said that. Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think on that note.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, I think on that note. Yeah, Gina, thank you so much for this. This was just a breath of fresh air because you are one of the most down-to-earth, just caring people I know, and having you leading our Revolution Evansville and just sticking your neck out there over and over again just to be that voice. You are an inspiration to a lot of people around the state, and I hope that when they see this and they listen to it, they can hear how important it is to just the humble service. Just put it out there and let it float and just keep opening eyes. Just one, even if it's one pair a day, just keep opening eyes, and eventually everybody will see it. Everybody will see it.
Well, I'm so glad to have you in this with me, Amanda. Thank you.
All right, Gina. Well, you have a good night. Everyone that's listening, have a great night. Be kind as always, and we'll catch you on the next Activist Hour.
All right. Good night.
Good night.